which is update on the formula ambulance building garage renovations. Chief Showender.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Richard, can you hear me?
Yeah, just barely.
Okay. The update on the building is some signage was put up today. DNS got some of the graphics on the front. We're still waiting for the sign to go on the main part of the building. Got a bunch of stuff put away and organized, and Mark is working on the internet trying to get them to get in quicker. Hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later. We're starting to move more stuff over every day, so hopefully the next, I'm going to say a couple weeks, but I'd like to be in there in a couple weeks for sure, but we'll see how it goes. Things are getting put away, things are looking good. If you're in the area and want to stop and check it out, feel free. But we are moving forward, but we're just waiting for some of the final stuff like the internet and then the security systems, the cameras. Other than that, it's going great. Any questions?
So everything's ready to go in there. We're waiting right now for the internet to get in there, and we signed an agreement with Metronet Jaguar because they were $100 a month for 100 megs down and up both, and MediaCom was at least $50 or $60 more a month. So the issue now is they told us it would be mid-September, and no days. September, so, or the end of September, but there's a 2-week window in there, and they have to run, they're gonna cut off of this building, because Metronet runs the library, they have a dedicated T1 that comes in here. They've got a trench through the alley, through the parking lot, etc. So I know their construction crews are really busy right now, but there's no reason for this, but unfortunately the alternative of going back to MediaCom isn't real desirable either. Another thing that I'm working on now is trying to get a price to put a couple of antennas on that building that would pick up from here for 2 reasons. One is if that gets hooked up, that could be hooked up a lot sooner. They could start using that. And secondly, then when their dedicated ground landline comes in there, fiber, the antenna would act as a backup for them. So if the internet ever goes out there, they're 2 different providers. So if the Metronet line goes down, which happens sometimes, hopefully not so often, they will be able to pick up MediaCom. And I'm even thinking of doing the same for this building, or trying to get the information. And I think that probably would be COVID related cost-wise. So we're hoping that we'll get something turned around here quickly, but it's kind of frustrating because we're just hanging now and they can't move until they get internet in there, so. Yeah, hold on.
So that's it. Any
Yep.
other questions on that? Everybody's good?
Yeah,
We should call it the police station.
Yep, please.
Okay, we'll go with item number B, the COVID CARES federal funding. And Mark, you well know what's going on here with that.
So,
Give us an update, please.
as we discussed at the September 2nd council work session, the city has received $134,000 in funding through the Federal CARES Act for COVID-19 related expenses. So without going through all the definitional stuff, the funds, as you are aware, can be used for different purposes related to COVID response, COVID equipment, things of that nature. So to date, the city has spent $6,261.43 on items including supplies, furnishings, adjustments to the building, and related items. As previously discussed at this meeting, we are working on quotes for some different items or systems that would be eligible, and so we're asking for approval on a couple different items. One of them would be iPads for the city council so that we can start going paperless, one, and secondly, that if we have remote, like Councilman Nielsen, they would be able to use our iPad, the city iPad that they're assigned. I would recommend going with a quote that we received for CDW government This would be for the 13-inch iPad, which I think will be a better product than the 11-inch. We also received pricing and information from Apple, but Apple, we are not convinced is going to be able to provide them in a timely manner. So I would recommend going with the CDW quote for 5 iPads and keyboards, which would be $8,007.49.
My question was, is that the Apple quote was for 6.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm not sure what the difference is. I mean, it would have been 5 is what we would end up getting.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the 6 is.
Usually would be 48 hours.
Yeah, they have them in stock, so.
Do we need a motion?
Yes, you, I got asked for a motion.
To me, I mean, this is a win for the city because we're utilizing the federal dollars, and in the meantime, we're gonna be saving paperwork, the printing costs, the
Right.
time it takes to
Yeah.
put in everything.
I agree.
So and it's gonna make it easier for people council members to keep everything organized. I've got like 7 piles going here tonight. So I will gladly move that we approve the purchase of the iPads using the quote from,
And the quote shows sales tax, I'll have to get that
yeah,
taken off of there, so, because we gave them an ST3. I just saw that quote showed it, so I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the quote
for
for.
$8,007.49.
Yeah, I'll second that. Who did?
Richard.
Richard, okay, that's fine. Any more discussion on it? Okay, we'll go forward with it then, so. All those in favor of getting the iPad for the city council at a cost of $8,007.49. Mayor Henke is an aye. John Mortensen.
Aye.
Aye. Tom Guard.
Aye.
Dan Regigal.
Aye.
Aye. Richard Nielsen. Aye. 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 Okay, then item number 2 is cable access channel. And Mark, I believe you can fill us in on that.
So, we also discussed the cable access channel character generator system. As you are aware, we have an extremely old cable access channel system, including the character generator, which is used on channel 12 or 13 on the media count system in Kenyon. We've been looking for some time at trying to get a quote or some options for equipment, which we have not had a lot of luck, but we were able to get some good information from the city of Red Wing. We connected with a couple of vendors, and I received a quote which would replace the current electronics cable access system equipment from the 1990s, believe it or not. As you're aware, this system is currently not fully functioning. It's based on a VHS platform. The rotating message, part of it still works, but the broadcast, the direct broadcast of council meetings and other meetings does not work. So there's more information included in the attached proposal from EPA Audio and Video. EPA has done these types of systems for a lot of cities. They are proposing a tightrope media system which would provide a video server unit with multi-format playback, which would of course include DVD, digital recordings, MP4, CD-ROM, in some cases, etc. It would have multi-format playback capability. It would have the ability to record, store, and play both high definition and standard definition video. It will be capable of live broadcast of meetings, broadcast of other community events, church services, etc. It would also include a rotating digital messaging system similar to what the city uses right now, which would play on the cable access channel. Also included in the quote, I asked them for numbers for replacement of the audio and video system in the council room, including the mics, the cameras, which wouldn't function anyway with this new equipment, so that would have to be replaced. The quote also includes installation programming, and I believe EPA was involved in the original city cable access channel. I also was seeking a quote from a company called Alpha Video Systems. They're a vendor for both electronics and tightrope. The kind of the latest answer I got from them was if we received a quote from EPA that we should more or less be covered. They were going to look into getting me some numbers, but they weren't sure if they'd be able to provide a complete and timely proposal on installation. So I haven't received anything from them. I guess my recommendation at this point would be to go with the EPA quote in this case. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Mark, do you know, would they be able to put the video, like, would people be able to go online to, say, our website and watch the council
Yeah,
meetings?
I think there's a way that could be done. I mean,
Because I think there are a lot of people that, myself included, that don't have city cable.
yeah, many people don't have
Right.
they stream
So it seems like if we're going digital platform, we should incorporate it
to
into,
our website.
yeah.
Well, there's probably ways that it could even be done now, but right, as far as I know, this can be tied into that. I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna work with this equipment, but,
I think, can you just make sure you get verification on that before we purchase it? Because otherwise, I mean, if we're gonna, let's make sure we're, going the whole distance here.
yep.
How long do you think?
So
this
you
will
will
go?
verify that we're able to handle it?
What's that?
You will verify that they're able to handle that?
The online broadcast, yes.
That will be included in your bid?
Yes, and part of that's gonna depend on our website and that stuff too, so we'll try to figure out how that would work. I think there's ways that, these can be broadcast. Some cities and counties even will use like a platform like Facebook. So, I mean, one way or another, there's a way we can broadcast. I just don't know as far as this equipment goes, how that will dovetail into online, but I would assume there's a way.
Well, if nothing else, maybe we need to consider an upgrade in equipment or something so that we can handle that.
Yeah, well, I think this thing, if it can't handle it, we're also getting upgraded switches and the kind of the stuff that'll go from the electronic or the tightrope server unit to MediaCom. MediaCom is going to also provide us some equipment to take it so it can be broadcast. So maybe there's some way to tie into that equipment too, online wise.
Good deal. Let's get modern.
Yes.
Need to go ahead with a motion on that then.
Correct. Yep.
Even with the questions that are still pending.
Yeah, you can make a
You'll
contingent
find
on
out
that if you want to.
I would move we accept the EPA bid contingent upon the items we've discussed, like being able to put it on the website.
Okay, well, we'll pass, right, second that one. So there's a motion been made. Any more discussion on it? Okay, a motion
You
been
need a
made.
second, or have you already got one?
Got one.
Yeah, we got one, received one.
All right.
Motion been made and accepted, or second for a cable equipment upgrades. All those in favor? Doug Henke, Mayor. Aye. John Mortensen.
Aye.
Aye. John Barry.
Aye.
Aye. Richard Nielsen.
Dan and Richard, aye.
Okay. Yeah, Rich, go ahead. Richard's- Okay. Ayes pass on it. Okay, we'll go on to item number 3, which is Scandia equipment upgrades for KMU. There has been some discussion with that, with Mark. And Randy also talked to me about it. And we'll let Mark fill it all in. I totally agree with what Randy is getting at here.
KMU is asking for council approval to purchase, utilize COVID funds to purchase remote SCADA monitoring equipment for the water tower. This system would notify KMU personnel of any issues that would occur at the water tower. This would include but not be limited to things like drops in water level, other security or equipment failures that might occur and cause issues in the water tower or the water system. The system would utilize an all-weather cellular router and supporting equipment. The cost of that equipment is in your packet, and it is, the original memo talked about $4670, but the actual number, I just, 3,000, is make you is,
It's on this whole.
it's 8555. And the other item as part of this too, they're also asking to utilize the funds for purchase of upgraded radio equipment, portable radios. So the total for all of the equipment, the SCADA and the upgraded radios is $10,324.99, which is in your revised memo that went out on Monday, I believe that was. So, and that radio equipment are the portable radios they use, so they'd be upgraded radios, again, which we feel is eligible as far as this COVID money goes. So, and what the council would be approving is the use of the COVID funds. It would not be, the actual purchase is approved by the commission, by the utility commission, but the use of the COVID funds has to be approved by the council. The COVID funding,
It's well worth it.
yes.
Yeah, another good thing on this too is like, let's say on the water tower, if there's a main break, it will detect it that there's gonna be a drop in pressure, which would give a heads up instead of somebody calling in and saying, hey, you've got a water main break over here, or if it's someplace where you can actually notice it for a while. This is something that gives them an upgrade on it. So this is a definite positive, and that hopefully it doesn't have to be used too often, but I do know it's well worth it. So we need a motion on that one too, so.
I would move that we approve the COVID funds to be used for the SCADA equipment upgrades.
Okay, we need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made and second for the SCADA equipment upgrades for KMU. Mayor Hempy is in favor of it. John Mortensen?
Aye.
Aye. Tom Guard?
Aye.
Dan Richardson?
Aye.
Aye. And Richard Nielsen?
Aye.
Pass. Okay. And then the third one, or C, is Christmas in Kenyon, Kava update.
We have one more thing under the COVID funds.
Sounds good.
That would be to set a special meeting
Number 4.
for the end of October to discuss possible additional purchases of COVID funds. There are probably some other items that we'll bring forward. One of the items we're looking into is replacing the phone system with the IP Internet Protocol phone system. And so I'm working on getting some quotes or options for that. Whether we stick with our current landline system or we look at a VoIP, like a voice over Internet Protocol system. So what I'm looking at would be, or what I'd recommend as far as timing, maybe the week of October 26th.
When do we have, what's our last day for being able to approve?
It is November
17th.
17th, I believe, yep.
Was it
I was
Tuesday?
gonna say the 15th is the date I'm working on, but that's a Sunday, but.
So we couldn't just do this on the 10th?
We could, it's just, yeah, we
Utilizing the rest of the COVID, figuring out what we're gonna do with the rest of the COVID. He's just looking
Oh,
for,
I see what you're saying, just at the regular meeting.
if we can go until the 17th,
Yeah, the only other thing is gonna be, that I also wanted, and I was gonna talk about this later in the agenda here, about the Mayo update. We did get representatives from Mayo to agree to call or Zoom in to talk to the council about the clinic closure and some things. John and I had a call with them last Friday. Now, we could do that during the regular meeting, but I thought that might be more of a work session thing, or we could try to do it, depending on their schedule, like at 6 o'clock that night. You know, we could do a work session before the council meeting or something, and then we could do the COVID review during the regular meeting. And there's nothing to say that we can't do that during the regular meeting. I don't necessarily think it's gonna be a big time kind of, you know, thing. So, you know, we could do that the second Tuesday, or, you know, when the November meeting is scheduled, yeah, absolutely, regular meeting.
Well, Mark, I would say definitely you should set the time and the date.
Well, do you want to just leave it open right now and we'll see what, I mean, I can see what Mayo's schedule is.
Yeah.
We did indicate to Mayo towards the end of October.
We did talk to them, because I assume that they might be.
John, how about you? Is it gonna work for you, or are you pretty flexible yet?
Yeah.
What date?
There's no set date.
I'm flexible, yeah.
So
I prefer later in the day.
we'll either look at the last week of October, or if we can get Mayo to commit to, the second Tuesday in November, we could schedule it for 6 o'clock that night to have some type of work session with them, and then just have the COVID discussion during the regular council meeting. We'll try to do that first and see how the schedule is.
Okay, now I guess we go on to Christmas in Kenyon.
Great.
We're having an update.
There's somebody here, I think.
Hi. So, we were here a couple of, or maybe 3 months ago, and talked about moving Christmas in Kenyon over to Parks and Rec, rather than it being handled by CABA, in part so that we can involve more of the, I suppose more retailers, but more businesses, Kenyon businesses, so that CABA isn't funding it completely, and that's a bit of a challenge, I think. And so you asked us to talk to Parks and Rec, and they agreed with that, and so now we're back asking you to accept that proposal.
And I know it doesn't call for it in the memo, but I would recommend some type of a motion to kind of accept the city taking over, I guess we call it sponsorship of Kenyon, Christmas in Kenyon through the park board. They, CABA and the Christmas in Kenyon committee have agreed still to run, you know, so as one of our first questions, and the park board's questions were, you know, are you asking us to take over all of the, you know, all of the man-hours that would go into coordinating or not? They're just asking if the city would sponsor the event, would be like the sponsor of the event. And I think it's a reasonable request. I don't think it's a pretty low impact, you know, event. It's really dependent on the retailers and CABA and the committee to pull together the different events. And the city's involved in quite a bit of this anyway, especially the stuff over at the Veterans Memorial and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. So we're pretty heavily invested in this event. And I think it's one of the few events we have left in town at the current time. So I mean, I think it's important to keep it going.
At that last meeting, was there any kind of a monetary figure talked about or anything?
I don't think that, I don't project that it's gonna cost us any more than we already put into it, because the role that the city plays is really more, part of that is KMU putting the lights up. That's not gonna change. And then, we just usually, like, I'll be involved with the lighting part of it. We try, and the committee really does pull together everybody, and kind of puts together the event anyway from an organizational standpoint. That's not gonna change. So the dollar amount for the event, of city, isn't a lot, and it's not gonna change just because we sponsor it.
So we'll say you get Park and Rec's help involved
Yeah,
along with it.
So then the park and Kava, you two will work things out.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, have you guys got a meeting scheduled or anything of the sort for?
Well, it would be the, Christmas in Kenyon would have its own committee under Parks and Rec. And so we will start meeting on this Thursday to start planning for this year's Christmas in Kenyon.
Okay. So we better have a motion on that?
Yeah, I think,
How are we gonna,
the city agrees to sponsor the Christmas and Canyon event for, you could just say for 2020 or, we could, remember what the date is gonna be?
It's the.
First Saturday in
It's
December?
the first Saturday in December.
This would be Saturday, December 5th.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah, I'm pretty
It should be that one.
That's what it's always been.
And we would ask it that you sponsor going forward, not just this year, but going forward.
Yeah, I'm just saying as an option, you can do it for this year and then revisit it again, or you could make it just more of an open-ended.
I think it's a great idea,
yes.
and I think it's, it's good for everybody. It's good for our businesses, good for the residents, so I'll move that we sponsor with the use of our Parks and Rec Committee, Christmas in Kenyon for going forward, this year moving forward.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion's been made and second for Christmas in Kenyon. The city agrees to sponsor Christmas in Kenyon on December the 5th. Is that what you're calling for? The 5th, okay. Motion's been made, second. All those in favor? Any more discussion on it, you'd ask? Okay, we'll move forward now. Mayor Hemke is an aye. John Morrison.
Aye.
Tom Dart.
Aye.
Dan Renchico.
Aye.
Aye. Richard Nielsen.
Aye.
That's passed. Let's hope it works out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. There's one other one on D, I believe it was.
Yeah, storm sewer
Storm sewer.
installation, Kenyon Road, and that way, I don't know if you want to explain to them.
So on the very west end of Kenyon Road, used to be ag land, and then those 3 5-acre lots got sold, and homes were built, and it kind of changed the way the water flowed, and now the water sits on the road. So a couple years ago, we talked about putting in a catch basin on both sides of the road and just draining the water to the ditch to get the water off the road. We had money left over from the tractor sale a few years ago. Last year, I couldn't get a contractor in to complete the work, and then the Wenzels have time this fall to do it. So we kind of just bid it as time and materials. Roughly looking between 8,000 and 9,000. We got 15 put into capital for this project, so we have plenty of money put away for it. Just kind of let you guys know that it could be done next week.
So,
Where is this?
At the very end of Kenyon Road,
Oh,
at the very west end, kind of where that log cabin home is.
It's kind of down in the dip where it just, I know, you pointed out to me where it is, and there was already a problem with it, even washes down the sand and everything else, the gravel.
Yep, they even had to move their mailbox because the
Yeah,
post office wouldn't deliver mail because the water puddle was so bad.
Oh, wow.
So this is our way to fix it up there for those people.
so when was that tractor sold, was it 18 or 19?
I think the winter of 18, it was at, when's the fall sale? Is that in December? Bearing steel?
So in, at the end of 2018, the city sold that, if you recall, the city sold the tractor, and then there was a waste spreader, biosolid spreader, because we started having all the biosolids, basically picked up by a contractor and hauled away. So there was several items that were kind of earmarked for use of that money, and this was one of those items. So the money was in the budget for about a month that year, and then at the end of the year it was put into capital. So when we talked about having the money, it was placed in capital. It wasn't really included in the next year's budget, but this expenditure would come out of, or could come out of Public Works capital. Yeah, and out of some of that money. So that, part of that, of those proceeds of 80 or 90,000 were never expended, and they were just put into reserve. So that's where we're talking about having money, so.
What do we figure? Was there a cost on it?
8,000 to 9,000.
Okay, I didn't quite catch.
Yeah, about 9,000, maybe top end.
Well, it should make some people happy up there too, so.
Just
We
regard-
have a motion on that though, too.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can.
we have to. Anybody care to make the motion?
Yeah, I would move, we approve the storm sewer extension on west end of Trenton Road.
I'll second that one then. So there's a motion been made and second for the storm sewer extension of the new road. Mayor Hinkey is in favor. John Mortensen,
Aye.
Tom Guard,
Aye.
Dan Reginald,
I,
Richard Nielsen.
Aye.
Aye. Item passed. Start digging. Is there any other thing that we missed? Okay. Well, then we'll move on to new business, which is a temporary street closure for home football games. At least we're gonna have some football games, I hope. So, I think we'll let that up to you, Dan.
sure. Yeah, and I'll recuse myself from the vote because the request is coming. So I'm the student council advisor up at the high school. And I don't think we're gonna do anything for this Friday, but I didn't know that when I put in a request, so just to be safe. But Friday, October 23rd is homecoming, and our plan is, as we block that section of 6th Street by the football field, that we would then allow cars, right now they have to just park and then they have to face east-west or west-east, which doesn't allow for a real good view. I actually got some temporary like yellow traffic tape off of Amazon, of course, that you can put down, and we can create 25, I would have the kids go out and measure, we can create 25 stalls so people can then turn in and face directly towards the field. And so it definitely will be good, especially I'm thinking for grandparents, especially as it gets colder. We have one game on November 11th, and plus, but because they're outside of the fencing on a city street, that doesn't count against the 250 capacity limit, which would be inside the fence. So we would set up barriers. There'd still be traffic allowed to go on 5th Street. We met with Chief Lee and talked about traffic patterns, and we would tear everything down after the game was over and be done, and we'd have people there to help direct traffic while the game is going on. So I don't expect anything for this Friday, but for the 23rd, and then I think that November 11th game is actually Wednesday, November 11th, and that would be the request.
You gonna have any kind of speakers or something up there down here?
I think what we're hoping is if we can, if it's covered on the radio, people can tune in, sit in their vehicles,
Yeah.
tune in on the radio. Yep.
Actually, I can hear the speakers in my house.
Yep.
3 blocks away.
Yeah, they have a sunroof, they can open it up and listen to the sound filtering.
You'd have to say that one.
Yeah.
Lee?
Okay.
Ready to motion on that?
Yeah,
It looks good. Mr. Etzel did a fine job and it'll be fine. We'll help with traffic if needed. It'll be good. We're excited to get some
Yeah, we
football
do
going,
have
so
this
it'll be
mark
fine.
here, that's what I said. Okay,
I would move, we approve the temporary street closures for the football game, home football games.
okay.
As long as safety's not an issue and chief is okay with it, I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and second for a temporary street closure for home football games. I'll go with Mayor Henke as an aye. John Mortensen.
Aye.
Aye. Tom Dart.
Aye.
Aye. Dan Rutschel.
I'll abstain.
Aye. How about Richard Nielsen?
Aye.
There we go. Okay, ayes passed. Temporary street closure for home football games. Let's hope it happens now, that they win. Okay. Resolution 2020-24, appointing election judges for 2020. We need a motion on that. Is there any discussion on that first?
Yeah, this is needed for the special election for the second congressional district that was recently called by the Secretary of State's office.
I move approval of resolution 2020-24.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and second for resolution 2020-24, appointing election judges for 2020. Mayor Henke is an aye. John Mortensen.
Aye.
Aye. Tom Dart.
Aye.
Aye. Dan Rutschel.
Aye.
Aye. And how about you, Richard Nielsen?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, ayes passed. Resolution 2024, appointing election judges. So we can move on to the next one, which is resolution 2020-25, designating an annual polling place. Any discussion on that?
This is an annual requirement that all cities designate a polling place by resolution by December 31st, and at least 90 days prior to an election. So because of the February election, we thought we should get this taken care of, so we don't bump up against the 90-day requirement.
How does it work so far down at the fire hall?
For the elections?
Yeah.
Good, I think Holly, I think it's been, how was the fire hall work for the elections? I think it's worked well.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, we have more room in there. I think it's a better layout than in here, and yeah, I think it's worked out well.
Yeah, I noticed for the primary, it seemed like it was very well organized for the COVID situation.
Yeah,
And lots
parking
of,
and everything, I
Yeah.
thought worked out well, yes.
okay.
There was plenty of room, it was considerably more area than.
Accessibility,
Yeah.
and I think there's something to be said around a standalone location that's not, city offices.
Well, I'll move resolution 2020-25.
We'll second that one. So there's a motion been made and second for resolution 2020-25, designating an annual polling place. So we'll start with Mayor Henke as an aye. John Mortensen.
Aye.
Aye. Tom Dart.
Aye.
Aye. Dan Rutschel.
Aye.
Aye. And Richard Nielsen. Aye. Ayes passed. Work time, a work session on November the 12th, canvass election results, what's with that? Mark?
So, because of the 7-day, that's the word I want to use, lag in when the final mail-in ballots that could be counted, we cannot canvass or certify the election results until Thursday, November 12th, which leaves us in every other city 2 days in the county, I suppose, either the 12th or the 13th, but we're obviously recommended that we do this on the 12th, so Thursday. So the council needs to set a special meeting to canvass the election results.
You have something against Friday the 13th, do you?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Friday the 13th, oh boy. So anyway, timing wise, I guess really doesn't matter. But I would, recommend earlier than later. I don't mean like earlier as in early afternoon, but just evening or late afternoon.
Yeah, well, I think you should set a time.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need a motion to set that meeting to canvass those because it's a special meeting, so we probably should set the time.
For November the 12th.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanna do it at like 5 o'clock or, Dan, I don't know what's your.
3:30 is fine, anytime after 3:30.
Well, George, that won't take too long anyway, will it?
No, it won't.
So should we just do it so that we can, 4 o'clock? Is
Yeah.
that something like a reasonable time? And everybody can go?
You gotta go out an email?
Okay, then
Everything's good.
Write that.
we'll need, does that have to have a motion on it or just?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move to set the work session to canvass the election results for 4 PM, November 12th.
Okay, I'll second that one. Any discussion? Not? Mayor Henke is an aye. John Martinson?
Aye.
Aye. Tom Guard?
Aye.
Aye. And Reginald?
Aye.
Aye. And Richard Nielsen?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes passed. Okay, the last one will be easier. Mayo Kenyon closing. Mark, I believe you give us an update on that.
Yeah, so as you're aware, and you also have a letter in your, that we received today, just kind of following up on the announcement a week ago Friday that Mayo Clinic Health Systems was closing in this region of Mayo Clinic Health Systems, Blooming Prairie and Kenyon, but there's other clinics that they told us, or when they called me about this, that are also being closed. So anyway, prior to the pandemic, as you're all aware, Kenyon Mayo Clinic Health Systems operated a part-time clinic that was open 1 to 2 days per week and maybe 2.5 before the end of last year. The clinic, as well as many of their other clinics, were closed in mid-March due to COVID-19, kind of personnel changes and things that they needed to do, along with other health provider systems also closed clinics, as you're probably aware. The problem is now they've come back and said that they don't want to reopen that clinic, Blooming Prairie, and as I said, other ones in their system, and these tend to be some of the smaller ones. The lease for the Kenyon Clinic expires at the end of 2020. So anyway, as a follow-up to this, Councilman Mortensen and I had a call with them on Friday morning of last week, and we talked quite a bit about the current situation. As most of you are aware, their logistics have changed, and they kind of told us that they've gone basically at the turn of a dime, is what I think Dr. Buckner described, from the old kind of system to a new system, and having much more telemedicine and remote types of experiences with patients. So anyway, to make a long story short, none of this is a surprise, I don't believe. This clinic has been limping along for a couple of years as a part-time location. I've expressed my concern with that it's gonna really bleed more patients off and the numbers go down, and then they come back and say, well, we don't have the numbers to support a clinic. Now, I think their primary issue that they conveyed to us was getting staffing at these remote places. And I don't obviously consider Kenyon a remote or rural location. I don't believe we meet that criteria. but they did kind of tend to default back to that, unfortunately, quite a bit. So the upshot of this situation now is, in our meeting, was that we talked about kind of the short-term past, the current situation with COVID, the clinic being closed for, now it's been probably pushing 8 months. And so then obviously our question is, okay, what, if anything, can you bring back to Kenyon? What kind of options are there? Things like that. And I'll be honest that they don't have a roadmap yet, but what they've conveyed is they'd like to work with the city to see if there are some services that can still be provided. Some of these things that have been, I guess models is how they wanted us to describe this, not so much options, but they wanted us to talk about maybe examples. And when we talked with them at that work session, that's kind of how they'll address this, is we don't know yet what the model may be, but we want to work with the communities where we're closing clinics to see what we can do to bring services to your community. So this could be things like, a kiosk kind of situation where people can have video appointments with doctors, nurses, or practitioners. It could be like a mobile clinic model. They are looking at different, right now, again, it's very preliminary, but I don't mean direct options in certain cities, but they're looking at, could that something that they can provide in certain cities or rural areas. And this could even extend to places where they currently don't have services. So this is what they would like to do, is set up a process with kind of a committee and meet and start talking about, okay, now we're going from the closure to what are the next steps going to be. And I think as a city, we owe it to ourselves to participate in this process. But I also will tell you that another part of this needs to be that we do need to reach out to other clinic groups and see if there is any interest in, any type of services in our community. Now, the timing, as I've expressed, to Councilman Mortensen and the mayor, and to Mayo, may be in the real short term, the next few months, very, very difficult for another health group, or health groups to, look at expanding physical on-the-ground locations, because a lot of them are closing locations. So we realize that this may be more of a, at this juncture, at this point, just kind of just reaching out to them and saying that we have interest. There is a small facility that will be available at the beginning of the year, at least kind of put that word out there to them. And so, those groups could include, and we'll talk more about this at the work session, and I was very straightforward honest with Mayo, and I think they realize that, the city has to do some due diligence along these lines to see if there's other options out there. But these could be Northfield Clinic, they could be Alina, they could be OMC, Olmsted Medical, and of course Mayo, and maybe there's other, who knows, but those are the ones in the immediate area. I've had a little conversation in the past with Northfield, but anyway, I think that's going to be part of this process going forward too. We wanted to really first kind of let this filter out a little bit, and I think part of that's going to be when the council talks to the representatives from Mayo, maybe we'll get a little better feel by that time of some things, and maybe in the next couple of weeks they're going to have a little more more specifics on possible options. We don't know yet, but right now they want to have this dialogue. We really don't know, and when you read this letter, it's very general. So we don't know if they're going to do anything or not, but they have said that they want to work with us. And in the past, about probably 4 years ago, Mayor Engel and I met with Dr. Bunkers and some of the other folks that we talked to on the phone on Friday, and they said we're going to cut back the clinic from 4.5 days to maybe 1 or 2, and we at that time expressed our high level of concern, and they actually did end up keeping the clinic open more days, and that went on for a few years. I do think the dialogue can be valuable and it can reap benefits. I think we do owe it to the residents to have this But it's an unfortunate thing. I mean, on one hand, COVID has done this with a lot of groups, and we understood that short-term closing, but also, I just don't see where a community that's almost 2,000 people cannot support some on-the-ground health system, clinic, whatever you want to call it. I have a hard time believing that. And this community's growing. We have a lot of traffic through here, and I just don't see where there can't be some options for a clinic, so, you know.
And this really isn't a surprise. I met with them back in February before COVID, and they were already discussing the concept of telemedicine for Kenyon. And then COVID hit, well, that kind of forced the issue everywhere. But it wasn't a surprise. It's unfortunate, and I think when they meet with us at that work session, it's going to be more, they're thinking up new concepts right now also. I mean, they're in a state of flux just like everybody else. So they might come back and say, well, you know, we're thinking about this, and we'll just have to hear them out.
And so this is where we talked about the special meeting, and we'll check with them to see first off about doing it up at 6 p.m. the night of the November house meeting. If that doesn't work, then we'll look back at that last week of the shop.
Sounds good.
Any other discussion on this? Athletic?
No,
Okay, so we'll run on to other business then. And the schedule of upcoming meetings, this KMU meeting is Wednesday, October the 28th at 2 p.m. City Council meeting is Tuesday, November the 10th at 7 p.m. And then Central Minnesota Municipal Power Agency annual meeting is Wednesday, October the 21st. So we'll have council and staff general comments. And I think this time we'll start out with Attorney Scott Riggs.
I have nothing further, thank you.
Okay. How about City Engineer Joe Ray?
that's the videos.
Okay, how about you? Mark, City Administrator?
Yeah, I don't have anything.
How about you, Richard?
Nothing, other than there was a closed meeting. What I could hear.
Okay. Dan Richard?
Yeah, I think, the only thing I think, I'll comment on is I like how we're getting creative with utilizing those COVID dollars to make some good structural changes that will be good for the long-term future of the city, especially making it, more accessible for people to see the meetings and tune in, so we don't have to do it over the phone system like we are now. So, good work to staff for, looking at all options there.
Town Guard?
I can't add anything to that.
Sound good?
Well, I certainly couldn't agree with Dan that maybe we can turn some bad apples into some good apples out of it with this COVID-19. That's it. So that's it on the comments, and all we need is to adjourn the meeting. If somebody will make the motion.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, Richard did. Mayor Henke is an aye. John Morrison?
Aye.
Aye. Tom Guard?
Aye.
Aye. Dan Reginald?
I,
Aye. Richard Nielsen? You did say aye.
Yeah.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.